All right. Now we're going to cover some information today that is in chapter 3. But the reason we're going to do that is because the information that's in 2.2 through 2.4 is really pertinent to after you learn what's in chapter 3. Okay? Let me show you what I'm talking about. You don't have to write this down. In other words, I'm going to show you f of x. You don't have to write this down. X squared plus 2x minus 8 or minus 7. Okay, that's the polynomial. And you can graph this on your graphic calculator in 2.5 seconds. All right? But that's not what I want you to do. What I want you to do is to be able to tell what's going on with this guy and know what kind of graph it is and know what the vertical and horizontal shift is and all that without even touching your calculator. And a lot of you say, well, why you got to do that? Well, in calculus and in trig, for those of you heading to trig and calculus, you're going to have to do the same thing with other functions. So you got to learn with a basic function, and the basic function is the parabola. And you have to manipulate the form that it's in right now. And then, let me just say, one, you don't have to write this down. Manipulate. And then you have to evaluate what it's saying. And then you have to say, okay, describe. Describe slash sketch. Okay? This is 2.1, 2.2 through 2.5. Everybody with me? This is chapter 3. Okay? So, I can show you how to do this first, and then show you how to do this, or I can show you how to do this first, and then do this. And I think it's better to show you how to manipulate the problem than do this. And what I usually do is give y'all a chapter 2 and a chapter 3 test together, just different tests. Now, you may say, golly, that's a lot of information. No, it's not, because this will help you understand this. But if I do it this way, if I show you this first and then do this, you're going to get confused. Does that make sense? So, just trust me. It works better. And by the time you get through doing this over and over and over, this is going to be a piece of cake. Okay? TK told you to trust me, right, Mr. Hogan? I mean, he told you to trust me, right?
I did.
Okay. And other people that may have had 110 before and weren't too successful with another teacher, you might be less confused by doing it this way. Now, and plus, all this is function stuff. So you know what functions are now, so that's not a big deal. All right. Now you can start writing. With these quadratics, with a quadratic, f of x is equal to x squared plus 2x minus 7. This is called a quadratic. It's called a polynomial. And it's called a trinomial. There may be other names. But to find out a little bit about this trinomial, you've been told to factor using the reverse FOIL. You've been told to use the shortcuts, B, not 2. B, that's a B. Shortcuts. Factor using the shortcuts. You've been told to use, I don't know why I want to do that. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm just messing up my bullets here. Because I hadn't had my biscuit, that's why. Mr. Hogan, there's biscuits up here for you.
All right, thanks.
B, C, quadratic formula, which is best used when you have decimals in your quadratic, which is hardly ever. And high school teachers drill that in your head like you're going to be using it the rest of your life, and you don't. And then, so I don't even show you that. Anything that I do in this class, anything is done by D. Completing the square. Now, let me talk about completing the square a little bit. Number one, it is the least known by students. Why? Because they don't teach it. Why did they not teach it? Because it relies on your what?
I was just going to say they teach the quadratic.
Why? If I want to take a guess? Because the quadratic formula relies on what? The calculator. What do you pick up when you use the quadratic formula? The calculator. Why do people not teach completing the square? Because it relies on your basic mathematics skills. And what does that include? Starts with an F. Fractions. And y'all are stupid when it comes to fractions. Not y'all in here, but students. Okay? And you know I don't teach stupid students, so you're going to learn it. Okay? 3. Why else do we use completing the square? Well, completing the square not only gives you the x-intercepts, but it also gives you the vertex. In the quadratic formula, you have to go through and do something else with the quadratic formula to find the vertex. So there's 3 reasons I use completing the square. The 4th reason, you use it because you can, it's not restricted. Neither is the quadratic formula, but the quadratic formula depends on the calculator. What do you mean it's not restricted? Well, what do these two have to be in order for you to do it? They have to be factorable. Okay? So really, the first 2 are restricted. They have to be factorable. If they're not factorable, then you have to write prime and you have to quit. Okay? This one, these 2, and I don't like to even look at that one. These 2 are not restricted. And in calculus the other day, yesterday, we were looking at limits and but we had to figure out what the parabola looked like. So I threw up completing the square and we did it in a matter of seconds. But the reason y'all don't know about completing the square is because your teacher didn't want to go through and teach it, because then they would have to go through and teach you how to do fractions. And they don't want to do that because students don't know how to do fractions. So, we're going to work on this for the next week. And you will have at least 10 or 11, 12 problems in your notebook. And we will drill this. I'm going to drill this in your head, and I'm going to drill it in your head, and I'm going to drill it in your head, just like you were taking calculus next semester. Okay? So, let's go ahead and let me show you how to do it. So we're going to use this example. F of x is equal to, what did I say, x squared plus 2x minus 7?
Yes.
All right, right quick, you need to write down, number 1, what is the y-intercept? What is the y-intercept, somebody? 0 for x, you get what? -7. -7 is always c. Now what do you mean c? Well, a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c. C is always going to be your y-intercept. So you might want to write that down. 2. After you figure out what C is, move C and add blanks. Now I always love when I write that down because somebody's going to say, well, where do you move it? Well, let's look at this. X squared plus 2x minus 7 is equal to 0. If I tell you to move C, where are you going to move it?
To the other side.
To the other side. So that's pretty simple. So this is 2. X squared plus 2x plus blank is equal to 7 plus blank. Now number 3 is very important, so I'm going to write it in red, and I don't like to write in red, but you need to highlight it. 3 is completing the square. It's actually completing the square. You take b, you divide by 2, and you square it. Do you always use b? Yes. Do you always divide by 2? Yes. Do you always square it? Yes. That's why it's in red, because you can't do completing the square without that. So in this case, this is 3. 2 divided by 2 and square it is equal to 1 squared, which is equal to what? 1. And 4, add number 3 to blanks. So I'm going to take that 1 and I'm going to put it here and there. Now simplify that. In other words, simplify the right side. Can you tell me how to find videos from last week on YouTube? No comment. And I think I'm back in black. AC/DC. All right, 5. Left-hand side will be shortcut number 1 or number 2. Will that be always? Yes. The reason you're doing number 3 is so you will get shortcut number 1 or number 2. So, this is number 5. What will that give us right here? X plus 1 quantity squared is equal to what? 8. Now I'm going to go to the next page because I ain't got enough room to show you how to do the rest. You don't have to go to the next page as long as you got about a half a page left or a quarter of a page left, because I don't want you to mess it up, so, or break it up. X plus 1 quantity squared is equal to A. Now at this point, I'm not going to write no more stuff over here. I'm just going to move it, if it'll let me. At this point, I want you to draw 3 arrows. One right there, one right here, and one right here. And on these 3 arrows, I want you to write Intercept Form, Intercept, I'm sorry, not Intercept, Vertex, and solve for X. Now this is part of chapter 2, what I'm fixing to show you right now, the intercept form. All you do is instead of, you move the 8 back over and you put an f of x in front of it. F of x is equal to x plus 1 quantity squared minus 8. Now, there's 2 things right here I'm going to highlight. This guy and this guy. This guy is your horizontal shift. Horizontal shift is always the opposite. Now it's easier for me just to say the opposite than it is for me to show you. The actual reason is A minus H, quantity squared, plus K. And if the number is a negative, that A minus a negative becomes a what? A plus. So the negative ends up to be a plus. So that's why I don't show it, because you get confused. So it's easier for me just to tell you to take the opposite. So what's the opposite of positive 1? Negative 1. Here is your vertical shift. Vertical shift, you just bring down. You don't take the opposite. And that's negative 8. And this is your vertex. And some of you might say, well, I thought you got vertex over there. Yes. There's 2 ways you can get the vertex. One is to put it in intercept form the way the book does. And then take the opposite of this guy and bring this down. And that's your vertex. Important. Another way is to just take the opposite of both. What's the opposite of positive 1? What's the opposite of 8? And now we're going to solve for x. Okay, how do you undo a square? Take the square root. If you do it on one side, do it on the other. Now that's not hard, people. The square root of 8 is 2.9. How did I do that so quick? Am I Rain Man? No. The square root of 9 is what? 3. So what's the square root of 8? 2.9. Somebody take the square root of 8 on your calculator. What do you get?
2.82.
2.82. Okay, I was off a little bit. Why am I not worried about it? Because what are we going to do? We're going to sketch the graph. Is it going to matter whether you put 2.8 or 2.9 on the sketch? No. So x plus 1 is equal to positive or negative. We'll say 2.8, just to be coinciding with the calculator. And what are you going to do with that 1, that positive 1? Bring it over. So x is equal to, what's $2.80 minus $1?
$1.
And what's, you owe $2.80, you owe $1. What's the outcome? Negative $3.80. And there's your two x-intercepts. And now you've got your y-intercept, you've got your vertex, and you've got your x-intercepts. Now what are you going to do with those four things? Sketch it. So if you've got graph paper, that's good. If you don't, then just do the best you can. What was my x-intercept? 7? Positive 7?
Negative.
No, I think it was positive 7. Yeah, negative, you're right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Negative 1, negative 8. Negative 1, negative 8. Well, it needs to be down a little bit, sorry. My graph is really not that good because I don't have any graph paper. 1.8 and negative 3.8. Now, what will the sketch tell you? It'll tell you if you got anything wrong because the points won't line up. And there's your parabola. Now, with the parabola, you can tell the following. Well, you know the domain. What's the domain of this function? Why is it all real numbers? Because the original equation is to the what power? So is it a radical or a fraction? No. So it's all real numbers. Please don't get that wrong on the test. All real numbers. Your range is going to be from this point to positive infinity. So what's that point as far as the y-axis? Negative 8. So negative 8 to infinity. Line of symmetry always goes through your x. X is equal to negative 1. Decreasing values. Decreasing values, well, how do you know? Well, which way do we read? Left to right. So put your little car here. What's that car doing? It's going down. So as you read x from left to right, that car is going to be going down, decreasing values. So from negative infinity to negative 1, it is decreasing. Where is it increasing? Well, put your car down here. From negative 1 to infinity. Now, out of all of those 5 things right there, there's 5 things right there. There's the domain, the range, the line of symmetry, increasing and decreasing values. All 5 of those things, there's only one that you look at Y. Which one is it? Which one is the one that pertains to Y? The range. You need to mark that down. You need to write it down. You need to highlight it because y'all are going to try to put Y in all the other 4 things, and I don't know why y'all do that. The only one that has Y in it is the range. All the other ones are what? X. Now, some of you, let's just go through the room. Sergio, you seen this before? When?
Last semester.
Oh. Yeah. Sorry about that. I didn't know I went into this with y'all. I guess I did. What about you? What class?
102.
102. Who'd you have?
Who do we have? Bender. I don't remember.
I thought you had me for 102.
I had taken it with him before that.
Oh, okay. How about y'all 3?
Like algebra 2 in 9th grade.
How much did they go over? Did they just hit on it just one day and then go to the quadratic formula? And then they stayed on
They may not
quadratic.
have even like touched this. They may
Yeah.
have just went straight to quadratic formula.
Yeah, go to quadratic formula. That way you ain't got to teach students anything. So all 3 of y'all had it at the same time about?
Yeah, I feel like she went over it, but I don't think we were allowed to like use it, like everything we did like on the quadratic formula.
Everything. Quadratic formula. What about you? You never seen it? I know you've seen it, Miss Lily. What about y'all? You seen it? Where'd you see it? How long ago?
I don't know. A couple
Last
years.
year or 2 or 3 years
Yeah, a
ago?
couple years in intermediate algebra.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to know because everybody's going to know it by the time we get through with 11 problems. Okay? And then you got 2,000 on your homework that I'm going to give you. So let's do it in order. And that's what I want you to do with it. I want you to go through and do it, and I want you to sketch it, and then I want you to write down these 5 things. So let's do one. And if you can't do it, then just write it down as a failure. F of x, or I'm not going to write it in f of x because if you do have an f of x, just change the f of x to 0 because whenever you change y to 0, you find your x-intercepts. So x squared minus 6x minus 11 is equal to 0. Now I want you to go as far as you can before you give up. Okay? They put any mayonnaise and mustard in here?
There's mustard, but I don't know.
Oh, that's gonna make me mad. I asked him right before they gave me the bag. I said, "Don't put mayonnaise and mustard in there." Oh yeah. It's all Bush's fault.
Yeah, tell them to put it in there and watch it.
Huh? Yeah. Guess I'll have to eat ketchup. It's all Bush's fault. You know what they should do to those two people that made those kids fight and put it on Snapchat?
What?
Yeah, two daycare workers were making kids fight on the playground and calling it
What?
Fight Club. Yeah. And putting it on Snapchat.
Where is this at?
It doesn't say, I gotta read it. It's just on,
That's awful.
How old were the children?
like 4 and 5 years old.
Wow.
You know what they should do? I'm a firm believer, if you do a bad crime, your punishment should be to go through that crime.
Right. Yeah.
So I think they should put them in prison and let people beat up on them. Same thing with rape and murder and beating up people, you know, hate crimes and stuff like that. Who's that walking through the parking lot in a suit?
Must be someone important.
Yeah, but it's not normal, that's why. Carly Farina made it to the CNN debate. They finally decided to let her in the debate. I'm glad CNN finally decided to let her in.
Who are you talking about?
Just some of the presidential nominees for the next presidential election.
Oh.
I think I'll give bonuses this semester. I think that's what I'll do. Give bonuses on the presidential nominees on both sides. Oh,